Hello 8th graders, you are watching the dimensional analysis video for ELR 1.8. In this video I'm going to walk you through how to use your WEAQ document and how to do dimensional analysis. Your WEAQ document is WEAQ. This is the watch section. So everything that I do on the screen should be, you should be taking notes in the WEAQ's W section of your WEAQ. So when we're doing dimensional analysis, the reason why we use this is because it's a good way to convert between units. So for example, suppose you wanted to go and find out how much money a road trip was going to cost you, but just for the gas. So in this case, you would be essentially converting like the amount that you want to go, let's say 350 miles, into dollars. So how do we convert miles into dollars? Well, in order to answer this question, we're going to start a little bit smaller. Rather than going from miles to dollars, I would like us to first consider money, because I think that money is a little bit easier to conceptualize. So if you wanted to say how many pennies are in $1, that one's pretty obvious. There are 100 pennies in a dollar. So $1 is the same as 100 pennies. Well, if we wanted to show this for dimensional analysis, we're going to start with our dollar and we're going to turn that into pennies. I'm using this example to show you how to do dimensional analysis with an easy situation so that it's a little bit easier when the situation gets tough. So to turn $1 into 100 pennies, first thing that we need to know, some ground rules. We're putting something over 1, we'll turn it into a fraction and it doesn't change the value. So we're going to be operating in fractions for this whole process. So we've got $1 all the way over here on the left. If I put that over 1, it's still a dollar. Anything over 1 is whatever you started with. The next thing that we're going to work from as a ground rule is that if you multiply something by 1, you don't change its value. So I can multiply this $1 over 1 and I won't change the amount of this value as long as I'm multiplying by something that equals 1. And that's really the key for dimensional analysis, is multiplying stuff by things that equal 1. So I know that there are 100 pennies in every single dollar. This equals 1. The value of 100 pennies on the top is the same as the value of a dollar on the bottom. So this fraction is really equal to 1. The reason why I want to do this is because when you multiply across the top now and multiply across the bottom, the way you do with fractions, we'll have $1 times 100 pennies. That gives us $100 pennies. And then across the bottom, 1 times $1 is $1. Now this is a crazy unit, $100 pennies. Well, another thing that's not necessarily a ground rule, but is true about math, if you have a value on the top and a value on the bottom, like I do here, those two things will cancel. So this unit, dollar, cancels out because it's on the top and the bottom. And what I end up with is 100 pennies over 1, or just 100 pennies. So that's how I mathematically got from $1 and converted into pennies. This thing right here, where I said the 100 pennies over a dollar, this was the key and is the key to dimensional analysis. This is called a conversion factor, or a ratio, and they always equal 1, so that we can multiply it to stuff and not change the value. So we multiplied it to a dollar, and we didn't change the value of that amount. So now let's go back to our car question. For the car question, it's a little bit tougher, so I'm going to work from some steps. And these steps are the same ones that I want you to work from now on. Even if you're doing like the penny and the dollar thing, I still want to see these steps on your paper when you're solving for dimensional analysis. So here's how we're going to do this. The very first step is ID the units in your answer. We want to end with dollars. So I'm going to put that all the way on the right side of my page, and I'm just going to leave a blank. I don't know how many dollars this is going to equal yet, but I know my unit I'm going to end in is dollars. Then the next thing it says to list what you know, the conversion ratios. So a couple of these were things that I had to go and find out, and some of them were just straight from the question. So I went and looked up how many miles per gallon my car gets. It's 35 miles per gallon. It said in the question that we're going to go 350 miles. I went and looked up gas nearby me, and that's $2.15 per gallon. And then the question was, how much will it cost? And we already did that. That's going to be in dollars. The next step is to set up our plan, step 3. So these two that I've just put stars next to, these are the conversion ratios. They're going to go in the middle of all this math that I'm going to be doing. I need to decide what I'm going to start with, and I'm really left with one thing, the fact that I need to go 350 miles. So I know that's what I'm going to start with in my multiplying. So I'm going to start over here with 350 miles. Now we're just going to start working our way through. I need to get from miles to dollars. First thing I need to do is turn this into a fraction. And remember, we just put that over 1 to make it a fraction, and it's still the same value. And then I've got to change this miles part out. So the ratio that I'm given is 35 miles per gallon. When I write that in a fraction, it looks like this right here, 35 miles over a gallon. And maybe you see the problem. If I multiply this ratio to my starting figure, 350 miles over 1, the miles will be on the top for both. And then they won't cancel out in the end. So I need to solve this. Well, here's the good news again about this value. 35 miles is the same as 1 gallon. Like my car can do 35 miles in a gallon. If I flip this around, it's actually still equal to 1. I could say it another way. I could say for every 1 gallon, my car goes 35 miles. You're really saying the same thing. You're just saying it in a different order. And then this second version of the same thing, that's what I want to use because it has miles on the bottom. So I'll put it right here. This way, miles cancels out. I'm not going to multiply across the top and bottom yet. I'm going to save that for last. But now I know that I need to take care of this gallon figure. I'm still not to my goal of dollars. I've got to deal with gallons. So I'm going to go back to my list. I've already used my first one, 35 miles per gallon. I only have one conversion ratio left. It must be the one I need. Gas costs $2.15 per gallon, so that's $2.15 over a gallon, and then gallons cancel out. Now I've arrived with just one unit left, and it's the unit I need, dollars. So now I'm going to multiply across the top. 350 times 1 times 215 is 752.5, and then I multiply across the bottom. 1 times 35 times 1 is 35. Then I just throw this ratio into a calculator, this fraction, to simplify, and I get 2150. So it's going to cost me a little under $22 in gas money to drive 350 miles. And we solved that by these conversion ratios in the middle. So now your next step on the WEAQ document is to explain. So in the explain section on your paper, please answer these two questions. You might want to pause the video to answer those questions now. If you are still watching, you should be done with the explain section and on to apply question 1. For apply question 1, you're going to be using dimensional analysis to show how many seconds are in 1 day. So please pause the video now and work through that. All right, and the second apply question is this one on your screen. You are traveling at 50 miles per hour. Use dimensional analysis to show how many feet per second that is. Now, you're going to start with 50 miles over 1 hour, and I'm going to give you a hint. If you solve the top part, the miles part, and convert that into feet, and then do the hour part on the bottom and convert that into seconds, and then put them back together at the end, you're going to get the right answer. Once you finish that, please start the video again to see the answers. For the first apply question, what you're going to do is you're going to start by putting your goal at the end. You're going to try to end with seconds, and you're starting with 1 day. Put 1 day over 1, and we start with conversion ratios. You would have had to go to your sheet or just know some of these. You probably know most of them. So we need to get rid of day. I know that there are 24 hours in a single day. That'll help me get rid of my day unit, but now I've got to get hours out of there. I know that there are 60 minutes in a single hour. That gets rid of hour. Now I've got to do minutes. There are 60 seconds in a minute. That gets rid of my minute unit, and I'm left with my target of seconds. Multiplying across the top and multiplying across the bottom, I end with 86,400 seconds. For the second apply question, I am going to be starting with 50 miles over 1 hour, and I need to convert the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go 2 different directions with this and then put them together at the end. For 50 miles per hour, I need to get rid of those miles, and I know that there are 5,280 feet in a single mile, so that'll cancel out my miles, and that's what I needed to get to is feet. So that's 264,000 feet, but I'm not done yet. Now I need to convert the hour part. 1 hour over 1 is, I can get rid of that hour by doing 60 over 1 for minutes, and that'll get rid of the hours. Now I've got to get rid of minutes, and I know that there are 60 seconds in a minute. That cancels out minutes. Multiply across the top and bottom will leave me with 3,600 seconds. Now I put these two things back together, 264,000 over 3,600. When I throw that into my calculator, I get 73 and 3 continuing feet per second. Now that you've made it through the apply questions, you now need to do the Q part of the WEAQ. You have 2 choices here. If you're confused with anything that you've just seen, I need you to write a question that would help you to get unconfused. So if there's a particular part that you're not sure of, or a step that made you confused, write a question about that. If you feel pretty comfortable with this whole dimensional analysis process and you're not confused, instead I need you to write a question that, if I answered it for you, would help you to understand this at an even deeper level. These types of questions usually start like what if you did, and then it shows me that you're thinking deeply about this question. Thanks for watching.